Hey, welcome to Plant Yourself. I'm your host, Howard Jacobson. Two quick announcements before we get to today's show. If you're interested in becoming a health coach, I'm offering another run due to popular demand for people who can't make 8 p.m. on Wednesday nights, Eastern Time. So we're doing another run of the program, which will meet, the practicums will meet at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays, Eastern Time, U.S., which means if you're in Europe or Africa, that might be good for you. Also, if you're in the U.S. and evenings aren't good and you have free time in the mornings, either 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 to 11:30 Eastern, then you can participate. If you want to find out more about becoming a wicked effective health coach, you can go to wellstartcoach.com. Second thing is, if you're not aware of it, Josh Lajani and I have a book that is free on Amazon Kindle. It's called Sick to Fit. And if you just go to Amazon and search for Sick to Fit, you'll be able to download it for free and read it on any Kindle-enabled device, even a phone, smartphone, tablet, computer, whatever. All right, let's get to today's episode. This is the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm Howard Jacobson of plantyourself.com and wellstarthealth.com. This podcast is part of my mission to help you live a marvelous, movement-filled life. Today's guest, David Sabgir, is a board-certified cardiologist practicing in Columbus, Ohio. And back in the day, he was really frustrated by his inability to move the needle on his patients' self-care. He knew how to treat them, but he didn't know how to help them get better on their own, to do the various lifestyle things. They just wanted a pill and a procedure and didn't really seem receptive to this message that they could take their health into their own hands. Eventually, he just had a really simple idea. Invite his patients to go on a walk with him. Just take a walk, like as a first step in reclaiming their power over their health. And this modest idea eventually blossomed into an entire movement called Walk with a Doc, which is within the field of lifestyle medicine, whose mission is to empower doctors to share the health and happiness benefits of walking with their patients. So from that single walk in Columbus, Ohio in April 2005, Walk with a Doc has grown to over 500 chapters worldwide. And in addition to the walk itself, these free events also include education on healthy habits and lifestyle. When I first heard about this organization, I just had a sense that this idea was so simple, elegant, and compelling that it had just grown pretty much organically. Like doctors would hear about it and say, oh, what a great idea. Let me do that too. And patients would hear about it and just flock to their doctors. Like, what a nice idea to just go for a walk with a bunch of people on a beautiful spring day or summer day or fall day or even wrap up or a winter day and just learn about health and be part of a fellowship of walkers. But once David and I started talking, I was quickly disabused of that notion that it had grown organically. It turns out the project had almost ended entirely at the end of 2005 when David became overwhelmed with professional and family obligations, when David's fellow cardiologists were skeptical of his low-tech, and by the way, low-cost approach to health. And all in all, the path to its current success has been anything but smooth. But just like a long-distance walker, David and his team have put one foot in front of another, overcome obstacle after obstacle, and created a mechanism to introduce the joys and benefits of lifestyle medicine with hundreds of thousands of patients and their friends and family. As David told me, exercise is the root of all good, and walking is the quintessential form of human movement. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with a pioneer in lifestyle medicine. So without further ado, David Sabgir, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thank you for having me, Howard.
So you are the guy who came up with a 4-word slogan that has turned into a national movement. We'll get into that real soon. But first, I'd just love to hear kind of your backstory about how you found your way into medicine, and whether when you got to like being a full-fledged doctor, was it everything you'd hoped it would be, or were there things that were off or missing or not quite aligned?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's an honor to be speaking with you. As a child, I was one of those kids that was kind of pegged as maybe going to be a doctor. And I got to undergrad, and that had been the plan my whole life. I got to undergrad and saw how much fun my fraternity brothers were having, and they were all going into business, and they were likely all moving to Chicago. I went to Miami University and outside Cincinnati, and I thought that looked like a lot of fun. So I went to switch over to the business school after my freshman year, and you needed a certain grade point that I did not have. So I went back to plan A from plan B and went all into medicine. And once I committed myself, ended up doing a lot better than I did my freshman year, which was pretty poorly. I had a lot of fun freshman year. Then went into medicine and went to the Medical College of Ohio in Toledo, and then went to the Ohio State University for internship, residency, and fellowship in cardiology. And really had some great mentors, and it wasn't quite everything I thought. I love the practice of medicine, but what I was seeing and through the studies is that exercise clearly was, the root of all good. So lower all the things you and the listeners know: lower blood pressure, lower weight, improve HDL, reduce your risk of diabetes. You could go on all day. Yet I was seeing a sedentary rate in my patients of, approximating 95%. Well, let me say 95% weren't getting the full 150 minutes, and probably 80% were fully sedentary. So I thought it was pretty easy. We've got a solution, and we just need to employ it. And for years, I would sit down with patients and have what I thought were extremely meaningful conversations. And I thought I was really good at it. As a matter of fact, I didn't think I could get any better. And then it took me years.
What was the feedback you'd get? Like, I know that feeling, like as a coach and as a consultant, like I'm going, God, I'm so brilliant, and they're just taking it all in. And then like, what were the signs that you were misreading to think that you were making an impact?
Oh yeah, they were saying, you know what, you're right, you're exactly right. I've done it before. I'm going to go to the gym and I'll sign up, and I would leave an asterisk on the chart and tell my attending, I was a resident or a fellow at the time. I'd tell my attending, hey, wait till Mr. Smith comes back. I turn him around. You've been with him for 20 years, and I fixed him today. And turned out my success rate was horrible. I was converting a negligible number over to adding fitness. Felt like less than 1%. So I had been an attending after finishing fellowship for like a year. I had just gotten through my boards and was feeling like I had some more time on my hands, and was also realizing I couldn't do this for the rest of my career. I mean, we have something that works and works incredibly well, and I was unable to make it happen. So I hate to admit it, but I wanted to zero, if you will, to say no to my face. So I said, how about if I go to the park with my family? My kids were, at the time, they were 2 and 4, and we'll walk together. And the response from that person was entirely different. And I started collecting emails. That was in the fall of 2004. Started collecting emails.
What was their response? Because you'd been getting such wonderful responses anyway, right? People were allegedly having these conversion experiences. What was different about the person that you invited to go walk with you and your kids?
That's a great question. And I don't think I've been asked that before. They asked what time it would be, where it would be, and there seemed to be something different in their response. So I kept asking it, with successive patients, and collected about 1,000 emails over the next 4 or 5 months. And we had our first walk in April of '05.
So it took you like months from first asking to having the first walk?
Well, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and
Oh,
the weather was horrible. So we wanted to do it right and go to just do it in the spring. So, and we were also, it was pretty magical, Howard. I never used the word magical before this, but it was one of those things where the community was coming together. Everyone wanted to have meetings and liked the idea right away. I spent a lot of time Googling because I figured it had to have happened in the past. And so we are also collecting community partners.
what sort of community partners?
Media, the park system, beverages. We were actually approached by a hamburger chain, which we turned down, but there were discussions about that. That was kind of interesting as far as do you join them, or if you can't beat them, do you join them, and all that.
What was your perspective, in those early days when you were, I'm guessing a little bit heady with all of a sudden the success you're having at communicating an idea, whereas before it was, sort of pushing a boulder uphill. Did you feel like, hey, let's take on, if McDonald's wants to get behind this, like we'll turn nobody away, or did you feel like there was a conflict?
Well, that was a small part of it. I did feel very fortunate. I felt like we stumbled on something, and that frustration I was having may potentially lead to something good. Yeah, we went back and forth. It wasn't McDonald's, and I know you know that, but we went back and forth. It was going to be on over 1.1 million tray liners a week and things like that. And this fast food chain had some healthy food, so we struggled with that, but we ended up not doing that. But yeah, it felt exhilarating. It felt, quite honestly, the same way it feels today. It felt the overwhelming sensation was that of responsibility, that we may have found something that could be effective, and we had to do everything we can to get it rolled out.
And who was the we? Because it sounds like it started out you just having different conversations, but did you feel like you were going renegade a little bit, or you wanted your institution support, or were other people curious about it?
I say we because we can never, do anything alone. It was definitely rebellious. I'm still in the same cardiology practice that was extremely, extremely busy, and still is. And you got a lot of people looking sideways at you as to, you're in a busy practice, what's going on here, that kind of thing. My group was very supportive. They brought in an executive director. Our practice manager, who we still have today, and is still a huge help today, was basically burning the candle at both ends. In between patients, I would go into our office and say, hey, what if we do this? What if we do that? And she has been incredible. Her name's Reva Foy. She's, we wouldn't be here today, I'm sure, without Reva.
So in other words, you've got this practice, and it's run to some extent like a business. And if you're out like walking with a bunch of people, you're not billing anything. Is that part of the issue?
I was doing both. I think there was some media coverage at the beginning, and a lot of our teammates within the cardiology practice, medical assistants, nurses, were being very supportive and talking about it a lot. And just it was a little bit of a rough time with that.
Uh-huh.
Just, I'd been out of training for a year and a half, and I'm supposed to be a productive cardiologist, which I was still, seeing all the patients and reading all the studies, doing all the procedures, but just with this other thing going on that would make it into the press, it was just a little touchy.
Uh-huh. They're like, you know what? If you, we'll get you a standing desk for your operations.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you used the treadmill desk by any chance?
No, I can barely do the treadmill by itself. I think, that seems. I think I would just write gibberish if I was trying to walk and type at the same time. Well, do you have one?
You should try it. You should try it. They're great. You can set it at a speed where they're really special. You should look into it. I love them.
Okay, I do have an adjustable standing desk. I figured I want my goal is to spend as little time in front of it as possible.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that seems to be a better solution than more mechanical contraptions. But I guess for people who that's definitely are tied to the desk all day, I can see how the treadmill could be a helpful thing. So you did your first walk in April 2005. You had collected 1,000 emails. What did you think was going to happen in that first walk? Like, how many people did you think you were going to get, and how many did you get?
I had no idea, and I was a little scared because we had two local news affiliates were coming. So I was scared to death we were going to have 8 people. We were fortunate. We had, I think we had 101 people is what the tallies show. And it was everything I dreamed it would be and more. It's to this day, it's hard to describe the feeling unless you're there. But it's like all these incredible ingredients coming together to make something that tastes so delicious. It's breaking down barriers. It's people coming together that you wouldn't always, see in a normal day. And the attendees are so appreciative, and the doctors are equally appreciative. They feel they're moving the needle. And we started this for physical activity, and I can explain more later if you want, but it turns out that the social connectedness is the magic ingredient, and that's something that, we love about the walk.
So the first walk, you got your news affiliates. You have maybe 8 people. Ended up being 100. Did you have a plan? Here's what I'm thinking. Like this thing has been built up, hyped a little bit. There's news coverage. Like we got to do something. Like just walking around for a couple of miles would have felt to me like not creative enough. Like we have to do, I don't know, sure, square dancing or jumping jacks or something. Did you just say, hey, let's, the plan is we're just all going to meet and go for a walk?
Yeah, that's a very fair point. We spoke at the beginning. The director of the Metro Parks was there. I think it's still a novel concept in the sense that the doctors were like, hey, I'm here, I'm fair game, whatever you need, whatever questions. Of course, you're not doing physical exams. The loop was, I believe, 1.1 miles, and we had fruit, waters, coffee. We didn't, now what we've included, but we didn't have it at the first walk, other than saying, quickly the benefits of exercise. All our leaders around the world start with a 5 to 10 minute discussion on something that is pertinent, and that brings everyone together. That right now is the hook tool that maybe you're referring to.
Uh-huh.
But there's so many people that aren't out moving, that the opportunity to walk with others in nature really struck a chord.
Gotcha. And you said there were other doctors besides yourself, right? So how many doctors were on that first walk, and what was the pitch to get them to show up?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to. I believe one of my partners may have been there, but honestly, I don't remember. I was, with all the attention that this was getting, and I don't mean to sound egotistical, we just happened to be in the press a decent amount. I tried to build a wall in between my practice and walk with a doc, with the obvious exception within the patient exam room. At that, during that time, I would close every visit with inviting them.
Uh-huh.
So I was trying to keep them separate.
Gotcha. And so after the first one, did you think, okay, it's done, or gee, we should do this every day or once a month? Like how did it grow? And I'm curious because it's a lot bigger than you at this point, right? So somehow organically or strategically, it developed a framework that allowed it to replicate and scale. Well, so I'm curious, like in the early days, what did you think it was going to become, and what did you do next to make it go there?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. I love these. It was predetermined that it would be weekly. With the response that I got in that winter of 04 or 05, I knew we had stumbled on something, and I wanted to get the bugs out, to make it replicable. So I set it up to be weekly. I figured at the very worst, I show up and I get to walk with my family and goes to the park. We're there, and hopefully you get to meet more people and learn what works, what doesn't work, and go from there. And I also have to say that I dream big, but I thought from the beginning, again, that we really just got lucky, and there was this responsibility that we were going to have to replicate this so others could take part. As those Google searches were turning up negative, I realized we had to get this out there.
Uh-huh. So how did you go about getting it out there? Did you did it just weekly for a while to work out the bugs, and at some point you said, okay, we're ready to share this this model, or did your patient say, hey, my cousin in Omaha was asking about this? Like how was the growth a sort of push or pull or combination?
Yeah, I didn't do it very well. We brought in this executive director I mentioned, who was incredible. Her name was Bev Solt, and she was friends with the director. We're in Columbus, Ohio. She's friends with the director of Ohio Parks, and she invited parks around the outer belt in Columbus to see if they had any interest in doing Walk with a Doc. She invited 11 suburbs, and they all said yes. So then my task, she was going to handle everything while I was seeing patients, but I did have to recruit the doctors, and that was damn near impossible.
Huh.
No one had heard about the walk. It's hard to get a hold of doctors during the day, Saturday soccer games, all that stuff.
What day of the week were you talking about? Was it a specific
Saturday mornings?
So the pitch was to doctors to come out on a Saturday morning and do sort of volunteer, medical care in the community.
Right. and I was relatively, new to this kind of attending world. All my, friends were at Ohio State. I was now in a separate system, and I was so busy seeing patients and reading studies and all that just I was unable to recruit these doctors, and it was not a good situation at all. So all these parks are moving forward. I was feeling more and more frustrated about being unable to pull in, what would amount, Howard, to 44 docs a month, right? 11 parks for 4 weeks a month. And I just said the walk can't go on. I was worried that it was starting to interfere with my practice. It was just getting too big too fast, and there was too much pressure, so I stopped the walk. And that was right around the end of 2005, and I felt really bad. It had become a good part of my identity. We had to let this executive director go, of course. And I missed it throughout '06. I missed it a lot. I felt that, of course, I felt I had failed. I felt that this was something that needed to be part of taking care of patients and the doctor-patient relationship. I knew it. And I also knew that I could not go back. It was just too much to be part of this busy practice. So that happened throughout '06. And then at the end, my wife said, David, don't worry about going to these, having it at 12 parks. Just go back to High Banks, the park that we were originally at. Just do it. Just do one and go monthly. Don't worry, that's crazy to go weekly. So I went back, and the park definitely had very hard feelings. They had put out pretty significant promotion that went into the Sunday paper and went into 250,000 homes. And we were on the third page that I had been so excited about, and then they had to, not do it. So there are a lot of hard feelings at the beginning of '07, and I felt like an idiot, but I felt it needed to happen, and it was pretty hard to start back up. But and we had many fewer people for the first walk of '07. I don't know if there were 20 or 30 people, but a lot of people that had put trust in me and the walk felt scorned, or they weren't happy with me. So started up again in '07 and just kind of let it grow organically. I started, I think I still did it weekly. I should have probably listened to my wife, but still did it weekly. And
hey,
that was a good idea.
Can I ask something about, so at the end of 2005, when you'd been doing it for a whole year, and it was just how many people were walking with you by the end?
Yeah. Not 100. I mean, that was kind of a big event, but pretty good. It was weather dependent. Certainly we had some that were over 100, but probably most were in the 60, 80 range.
So I'm guessing there were maybe 300 people who are more or less regulars.
That's fair. Yeah.
I mean, what did they have to say when you were like, you know what, I'm too busy? Did any of them keep going? Did they say, oh, well, now it's over? or did they say, oh, you've given me a tool that I can keep using?
For the most part, they weren't happy. I remember a couple of people reaching out saying, hey, you need to keep doing this. Docs need to be physically active. You need to take care of yourself too. And the irony was I was taking that time to run with friends and, do a marathon in '06, but I got it. We still have some today that were there in '05. But No, I don't think it had taken hold enough to establish, you know, lifelong habits, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. Okay. It's because it's weird, it's like on the one hand you've created this thing, on the other hand, like people are complaining and like, you can do this yourself, like
Yeah.
you can still go for a walk. Right. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's funny in a way because you've created this wonderful thing that's scaled and it's become so big and communities are participating. But on the other hand, like it's a testimony to like what a crazy species we are that we need organization and instruction to like move our bodies with our feet.
That's exactly right. And I think the social connection is a huge part of it. I think people were seeing their friends disband.
Uh huh. Gotcha. So you were sort of the organizational glue holding the social connections together.
Mm. No, I was just a small part of it, but the mindset, I can't really explain it, but the mindset of the group was, that it was over.
Uh huh.
Even though we certainly encourage people to continue walking together.
Right. All right, so you brought it back up. You had all those hard feelings. It sounded like you had to eat crow a little bit,
Yeah,
uh,
a lot.
a lot. Um, then what happened?
Yeah. Um, we had been pushing to have the program recognized in, some media sources to try and plant the seed nationally. And finally, in this was, I started up organically again in '07, but still felt like this needs to be in a lot of places. This is just too good of a connection between the patient and the physician. In I think it was August of '08, we were fortunate to be in Cooking Light, and it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted, a story about Walk with a Doc, but instead they wanted to talk about like, my recommendations for what to wear or something when you're walking, which is certainly not the person to be talking to about that.
Oh, you rock
But
a hoodie. I saw Code Blue. You're
rock a
absolutely
hoodie, I
you're
love that.
absolutely a pedestrian fashion plate. So don't sell yourself short there.
I shouldn't have been in it for that, but at the end it said something about David Lee's Walk with a Doc, and we were the only program, and that's what started the whole thing going. So we had about 50 requests from around the country to get this going. We had nothing. It was just me and Riva still, and then General Motors approached Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield we heard about and said that they wanted the program, and that never evolved. But Anthem came on as a sponsor about a year later. It took a year, and they provided us with enough funding to hire a second executive director. The first one, of course, lasted like 7 months. And her name was Catherine Stevens, phenomenal. And through with her and with Anthem, they were able to make a toolkit that was replicable that we could send out to around the country for those who wanted to start. And we started getting, we had pretty much lost those 50 requests by the time all this was done. It took a while to get the toolkit going, but that started. And then a great guy named Mike Roizen, who works a lot with Dr. Oz, he's the director of wellness at the Cleveland Clinic, sent down a couple women, Nancy Ickes and Patty, blanking on her last name, but Summers, I believe. They were great, and they wanted to bring the program up to the Cleveland Clinic. We're 2 hours away, so that was very fortuitous for us and our growth. That the Cleveland Clinic and their leader was a guy named Rick Krejci, a family medicine doctor. Under his leadership in Cleveland, they grew the program to 14 sites over the probably next 5 years. And that was always something great to hang our hat on as you started to get invited to, do national talks, or as we would talk to, systems or docs that would reach out to us, when you would just subtly drop that Cleveland Clinic name, it kind of, it was a big shift from that 2005 when no one knew what it was to get that good housekeeping stamp of approval.
Mm. And so people wanted to replicate what you were doing and the name. And, like, was it that there was a brand about it, or you had some, like, I'm thinking in very crass terms, like in terms of a chain restaurant or something, where why wouldn't you just start your own unless what you wanted was the proven system and the brand recognition? Like, why did people want to replicate Walk with a Doc instead of, their own thing?
Right. And I wondered that too. I would say a couple things. One is, thanks to Anthem, it was free. So if someone sneezed and it sounded like Walk with a Doc, we sent them 100 T-shirts and pedometers. We were just, trying to throw seeds up in the air. And then the other thing is the name is very special. There's a long story behind that all my stories are long, as you can tell. But I won't get into it, but it took us over 10 years to get the name, and we tried hundreds of other names, and it's a special name.
Okay, I want to hear the long story. So when you say you try to get the name, it's like, walkwithadoc.org or .com?
Yeah, well, God bless you for that. I came up with Walk with a Doc. Initially, I was going back and forth between that and You're Invited. Everyone likes to be invited to something. And I was in a meeting with one of the news anchors in Columbus, and I just remember saying as I was leaving, she's like, "David, you got to call it Walk with a Doc. Doc needs to be in the name." So we were going through everything, and there was a cardiologist in Carlsbad, California, who was going to do a 5K that never materialized called Walk with Your Doc. And again, it was a one-time event, and it wasn't a program, but everything was out of my pocket until Anthem came on in 2009. So it was 4 years of coffee, fruit, banana, water, all that stuff, which was great. And we had a lot of help from pharmaceutical companies would provide some food, but it was a tenuous situation, and taking out a lot of money was tough. Well, this guy wanted to lease the name for $10,000 a year plus $1,000 a month or something. And at that point, we just kind of went rogue. He wasn't doing his program. We got a cease and desist letter back in 2008. Ironically, a week before that Cooking Light article came out, which was, I don't know how that happened. But anyway, this guy never used it. And then finally, like in 2014, I believe, maybe 2016, their research foundation in Carlsbad was no longer existent, and we acquired the name for good. We called ourselves Just Walk, but we are doing business as Walk with a Doc.
Well, it's such an innocent, sweet thing you're doing, and it turns into all this drama.
Oh, it's crazy. And the insurance, my wife's an attorney. She said, "David, you're not walking in the park without coverage." I'm like, "We're walking in a park. Are you kidding me?" And so she wouldn't let me do it until she just wouldn't let me do it. So the very first walk, we paid $500 for what I thought was the year, and we were walking with this really great woman friend, Ariva, and she said, I'll never forget it. Midway through the loop, she's like, "They were really happy we could support you. It's a wonderful thing. I'm just curious, what are you guys doing about next week?"
Oh my God!
Like, next week? I'm like, so it was $500 a week. So at that point, I was like, well, we're walking unprotected. I didn't say that out loud, but so we spent basically the next 3 years without insurance, and my wife did not know.
Wow. Does she know now?
Now we
should
have
I take out
insurance
insurance on this podcast for when she finds out?
She knows now. Yeah, and it was a pain in the butt, but that's been something that we worked through a lot, and that is another reason, back to your great question of why wouldn't anyone just do this alone, is that coverage was really helpful in pulling people in.
Uh-huh. Wow, because I think about actuarial events. Like, did somebody do the math on a 1.1 mile loop with coffee and fruit and decide that, on average, every 3 weeks someone was going to sprain an ankle or break a leg?
I don't know if anyone did the math. I was too busy, but I was blown away that it was $500 for that week.
I mean, that's like my life insurance for the year, and I'm in my mid-50s.
Yeah,
like if I were paying, $27,000 a year for life insurance, I would I would think that I would be updating my will frequently.
Yeah. Well, it's infinitely better now, as we've evolved.
So now it's sort of all over the country. I guess people are hearing about it and coming to you. Like, what's the current state of play? How much is you sort of putting all this energy into it? Because before we talked, I had this story in my head of how it happened, and it was from watching the movie Code Blue, in which you're featured, and you're just a very, very sort of sweet, approachable, laid-back guy in my mind. And so you had this idea, and you started it, and it just sort of grew organically, and it's there was like no problems and no troubles and no complications and no hard feelings. Like, obviously that story is completely inaccurate, but at some point, did it get there to where things are just sort of growing and there's organic movement towards it becoming a very commonplace thing in communities?
It's really becoming commonplace. Yeah, I love every day. Every day is incredible. As far as enjoying it, right now we're getting about 100 requests a month to start. Our team, our current executive director, is just a force of nature. Her name's Rachel Habash, and Brian Romy. Brian's manning the shop today, for example. He's incredible. So we've been blessed with exceptional people that have, created this way to get it out to the masses. We're adding about, last year we added 17 chapters a month, and the year before was 11, and we're shooting for about 22 chapters a month this year. We want to, give this to. We want it to be their baby, whoever it is, whatever country, city, state they're in. This is going to be theirs, but we need to give them all the infrastructure to make it happen and make it as easy as possible, because we've seen this transform now close to 500 communities. And I kind of believe that the best solution is the simplest solution. And we see thousands of chapters out there eventually, and we're just trying to not get in our own way.
Uh-huh. So how much of your time now is spent on Walk with the Doc versus your practice?
Practice is about 45, 50 hours a week, and Walk with a Doc is about 25, 30. My wife is super supportive, and now that we have insurance, right, But she's been incredible with it. My family's been great. And of course, I'm just a small part. I'm just there to watch it happen. And it's one of those things that I never understood before the walk, that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's so fun to, I believe we are given a gift to transform the physician-patient relationship, and also in that transform the way medicine is practiced around the world. And we just work every day as hard as we can to make that happen. And it's really fun to watch and see where it goes.
Yeah. So what is the vibe? And so yes, walking, a mile a week or a month is awesome. Finding other people, but what for you is I might make you say the word magical again. What is the magical part about the relationship between the doctor and the patient? That maybe the patient sees the doctor doing something for their own health, which I don't think I can ever. I don't think I've ever seen any of my doctors when I was a kid doing anything that looked remotely healthy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you see as the magical parts of how this has evolved?
I think there's three major things about that. So you're doing physical activity and everyone's smiling at the end, and you get all those endorphins we know about, serotonin and everything else, norepinephrine. It feels good. So that's good. And then the second thing is the social connection, which, some people say we're becoming more and more isolated. So it's bringing us all together, and the friends that you meet, you go and a new friend or have a great conversation with an old friend that you didn't know, and that's fantastic. And the third thing is that most all of these are occurring in nature, and nature, as you know, I'm sure much better than I, has all these, I'll say it, magical properties. And I think it's those are the main three. And then I think people just think the docs are supposed to be in the room for, a 15-minute visit that they're trying to get out of there in 4 or 5 because they're late and there's no time to talk. And I mean, we all know that stereotypical doctor's office visit. So here it's like there's a pop-off valve. You can talk as long as you want. There's no physical exam, but you can definitely, the docs are there to give their feedback. And we've had so many chapters do such creative things that I never would have envisioned. We have dietitians, often many of them can create a medical home where there's pharmacists, exercise physiologists, and really have everyone there. So that relaxed atmosphere, I think, means everything.
Hmm. And do you have a sense of what the results have been if we were to call this like a medical intervention, and just turn into bean counters and become actuarists of, let's compare this to statins or stents or something. Do you have any sense of where and how it may have moved the needle for people?
Not as much as I should. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has been really helpful, and they provided us with funding a couple of years ago to work with a great group called Lime Tree out of Austin. And we have really good qualitative data on, from some pilot sites in Austin and in Columbus, Ohio, but we don't have any biometrics.
Uh-huh.
And I wish we did, and I believe we will, as we hope to partner with universities in research down the road. And I know that'll happen, but our bandwidth is not good enough. I should have, I wish I would have grown the organization more than I have at this point as far as our team size.
Uh-huh. Do you hear stories? Let's get
Oh,
anecdotal
every
here.
day. Yeah. Anecdotal every day. And that is enough fuel to keep you going, for 100 years. The docs, a lot of this, I have to say, is what I expected. Just from those first 6 months, I realized just got damn lucky. But what I did not expect was the retention rate. And that to me is of the physicians. And that to me is probably the best anecdotal thing. I figured the hole in the bucket would be pretty big and we could fill it faster than it came out, but I thought it would be a contest. Our retention rate is about 83%. And it still surprises me kind of, even though I see the value in the program. Viscerally, it's just so heartwarming, but that still surprises me. We have, the classic weight loss stories. We've got a marriage out of Massachusetts. They're countless. I love seeing different walks of life come together that may not necessarily have happened at the walk and walk together and form, relationships that you might not have expected to see. I would say that all 486 of our chapters have a mountain of stories. We're very fortunate about that.
Mm. And has this become a toe in the water to other lifestyle interventions? Like, are people, moving? Like walking seems to be a much easier argument to make for people than like the kind of dietary shifts I encourage. Like, there's no equivalent of like, vegan versus keto in the walking community where people are saying, no, you need to walk on your hands only. And here's why. Like, given that it's such an easy sell to human beings, do you find that it leads them to the other pillars of lifestyle medicine?
I wish I saw that more. We're working on that. During that 5 to 10 minute intro, we're really trying to push, dietary changes, and some of like at the walk I'm involved in most. We have volunteers bring recipes and samples, and we're really trying to push that. But I need to do a better job leading us in that direction.
Uh-huh. Are there chapters that are doing that more? Because I did a quick lookup of walk with a doc near me, and I found a plant-based doctor who seems to be doing a lot of cooking demos. And are other chapters leading the way there?
I see that definitely has to happen. You're very familiar with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine.
Yep.
I love that college, and the doctors and providers I met through that, and more of them are signing up to do Walk with a Doc. It seems like just about every day we're talking to someone from ACLM, and they are leaders in the movement. So we're encouraging them. We don't have to encourage them; they would do it anyway, to incorporate that into the walk. So as we're able to team up with more ACLM members, that'll happen.
Uh-huh. That's great. I wonder if there are any doctors who want to adopt like Walk with a Doc as their practice. Like you have to walk in a loop with them during your consult. That way you don't have to have a treadmill.
There you go. Exactly. We get asked a lot about, can you bill, and you can't. But a lot of docs want to do that.
Uh-huh. Right. The privatization of walking on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. So have you, I assume you've seen Code Blue?
I have not.
You haven't? Oh, okay.
No, I really, I was on call the weekend of the showing in New York, and our team has, Rachel and Brian has seen it. I got called away on call again, so I have not seen it yet, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm a huge fan of Sarai and Marcia, and that was an incredible honor to be included in that.
Yeah, I'm curious if that. Have you been in other documentaries or sort of national media things? I'm sure you've been on some.
We have. There's a documentary made by Dr. Kim Field Springer at Berry College in Rome, Georgia, and she had been at a small college in Ohio, and she did a really beautiful half-hour documentary following a lot of our walkers, and it's so great to help get the message out and make the program aware. And yeah, we've been very fortunate to get some national media, and we love that. When we were on CNN, we had, within 3 days, we had 683 doctors request to start. So obviously we're just approaching 500. So it either takes time or life gets in the way, but those are incredibly important for a small nonprofit without a marketing budget.
Uh-huh. That's awesome. That's awesome. And has your practice come around a little bit? Or you still get sideways glances?
I still have that brick wall up. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, I have the same partners. They're great, and I am so fortunate to be in this group. They practice incredible medicine, and but I keep it entirely separate. It's interesting. The team, we have about 50 teammates, and just about all of them have Walk with a Doc shirts.
Uh-huh.
And there are many days where there's 15, 20 Walk with a Doc shirts along with the scrubs. And I absolutely love that, but it's kind of seen, not heard. We don't talk about it.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. What is there? Do you do other things for movement, for exercise, or is it just simply the walking right now?
I into this body pump class, and I just started doing strength training. I've seen pictures of you. You do strength training, I can tell. I just started in the last couple of years, and that's a great class. And I love to bike with friends, and I do a little bit of running. But,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah. It's either strength training or Photoshop. I'm not telling.
It's strength training. You can't be that good at Photoshop.
All right. Cool. If people want to find out more for either doctors or for, I don't know what the opposite of doctor is, civilians, ordinary humans want to join the group, where do they go to look?
Yeah, it's walkwithadoc.org. And you can always email me at david@walkwithadoc, or our phone number for the office is 614-714-0407. We're also doing something really fun in 2 months. We're doing a 50-mile walk in one day. It's a challenge to see what we can do. But it'll be our first fundraiser that we've ever done. And
wait, so people are going to walk 50 miles in one day?
We're going to try it. It's called the Challenge. So it's a 5-mile loop in New Albany, the small town I'm in outside Columbus. And the city's been great. And we've got a 5-mile loop, and we call it the Challenge. So we're going to start at 6 a.m. and see how far we can go. The history is pretty cool. So 110 years ago, Teddy Roosevelt was concerned the troops were soft, so he issued a command to the Marines to walk 50 miles over 3 days in consecutive sessions, hour sessions. So, for example, the first day you walk 6 hours, second day 6 hours, third day 8 hours,
Okay.
but 20 hours. And then 55 years later, when JFK came in, he thought the troops were soft. So someone said, "Hey, look what Roosevelt did." So then he said, "Well, we should do it in 1 day." So that 55 years later, that became a craze. And it's really fun stuff. Artofmanliness.com does a great article on it. Well, it's 55 years later from that. And we just want to, we want to see what we can do compared to the people who've come before us. And it's a way to bring us all together, listen to music, spend time, and it should be a blast. We have great crew signed up already, so it should be a lot of fun.
All right. So I'm just doing the math on this. If I'm doing a standard 3 mile per hour walk, that's 16 2/3 hours. Right. So is that you start at 6 and you might finish at midnight?
Yeah, we're closing it at midnight.
Wow. So can people, is it allowed to like jog too? People without
absolutely.
That kind of attention span?
And exactly. As we do it, as we're having practice sessions, our friends and I, we're kind of walking 9 minutes, jogging for 1. And it's that helps kind of keep the legs fresh, break up the monotony. It's good.
Wow. What's the date for that?
It's May 4th.
May 4th. All right. Is there a web page for? That sounds like a destination event. That's like, people will travel around the world to run a 50-miler. This sounds like
we have a lot of people signed up. We have a great teammate in Boulder, Gina Simmering. Her walk has over 200 people.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Excuse me, Gina Danucci. Yeah, she's incredible, and she just became a full-time teammate. So she's pulling a bunch of people in from Boulder coming in. We also have a virtual walk, so we have people all over the world that are going to be doing it that day. There's some great swag that comes with it. We're having a rucksack and a patch, and the committee putting it together is working really hard, and they're doing some really fun stuff.
Cool. If you have the web page for that, if you could email it to me, I'll put it up in the show notes.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I will absolutely do that.
All right. Well, this is great. It's fun to hear the story. It's fun to check my assumptions and to hear in some ways, this was a real struggle, and in other ways it's been a very sort of natural, organic process. And I'm really happy to be able to learn about it and share it.
Well, it's really fun to talk about it. So I appreciate you having me and asking all these great questions. I just love it to death. So I love answering questions on it, and thank you very much. And again, kudos to what you've done. It's just awesome to watch, Howard. Thank you.
All right. Simple, elegant, empowering lifestyle solutions for the win. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation with Walk with the Doc's founder, David Sabgir. If you're interested in finding out more about Walk with the Doc, you can check out walkwithadoc.org. You can also see a really nice set of scenes about the organization in my colleague, Dr. Sarai Stansik's documentary, Code Blue. Check out codebluedoc.com to find a screening near you. If you're in the North Carolina Triangle area, there will be a screening at the PPOD, Plant-Based Prevention of Disease Conference. I believe that's mid-May. You can check out preventionofdisease.org to find out more about that conference. If you're in the area, you should definitely come. There's going to be a great lineup. The WellStart team will be there, and we would love to shake your hand and go for a walk with you. Or you can join us at the Umstead Half Marathon on that Sunday morning at 7 a.m. So if you enjoyed this episode of the Plant Yourself podcast and you'd like to support our mission, the free way to do so is to subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And a reminder that this podcast is free for those who can't afford it and supported by those who can. So if you've got a few bucks lying around the house that you don't need every single month, you can become a patron of the show. Just go to patreon.com, search for Plant Yourself, and you can, with an ongoing monthly contribution, you can be one of those stalwart supporters whose names I read out so quickly, breathlessly, and gratefully at the end of every episode. Check out the show notes for today's show to see a picture of David and a link to Walk with a Doc and some prose about the organization and the interview at plantyourself.com/317. If you're new to this show, you can catch up on hundreds of archived episodes over at plantyourself.com. In garden news, Mia informs me that none of the peas came up, so she's going to be replanting those today, waiting for the fence to arrive sometime this week, and looking to get more potatoes and maybe some sweet potatoes into the ground soon as it dries out a little bit. In running news, back in training for the Umstead Half in mid-May. That's a pretty hilly course in Umstead Park in Raleigh, North Carolina. If you're in the area, come on down. They also have a 10K, and it's a fun race, and the weather should be decent. So thanks so much, as always, to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, the Dance of Peace, as its show's theme music. Check out willridenauer.com for more. And thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Got some no new ones this week, but a couple of people have increased their monthly support, which is very, very appreciated. So here goes. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Burns, Christine Nielsen, Tina Sharp, Tina Ahern, Jenna Volkanovsky, David Bizek, Mysterious, Michelle X, Elspeth Felden, Victoria Dolman, Nova, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Connie Peck, Michelle Andrews, Josina, Julianne Rollins, Stu Dolnick, Sarah Durkis, Ryan Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Patterson, Leanne Peterson, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Project, Jeanette Bennett, Gila Stert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Doro Navizo, Gio and Carol Argentati, Jodie Friesner, Ruth Ann Thunderberg, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, The Equally Mysterious, Tracy Z, Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, Rhymes with Cinnamon, Nick Carper, Stephanie Holmes, Martha Bergner, Nicole Ramsey, Susan Ahmad, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable, Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Sharp, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Lashley Corker, and Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, of Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Koppel, Shell Rutledge, Julian Watkins, Reed O'Connell, Brian Sheridan, Shannon Frischman, Kate Rosalind, Ayat, Julie Lang, Helen Hedegaard, Izutuzin, Wakani Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Galel, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Cheryl Jensen, Sherry Orlikoski, Plant Power for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Kelly Baker, Miracle, and Jesse Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divitt, Joshua Sommermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Lori Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Deb Cassia, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan McCorney, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Karts, Deanne Bishop, Bilbury Elf, Gunter Schmidt, Marjorie Lewis, Kelly Molden, Tisha Adams, Asian Kramer, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarie Hagen, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Eden. Oh, Meg for Mama says you get your very own breath for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for this week. As always, be well, my friends. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, the Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Anthony Disson, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jean Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Barons, Christine Nielsen, Tina Sharp, Tina Ahern, Jen Volkanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious, Michelle X, Elspeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Andrews, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Rhymes with Circus, Kelly Cameron, Wayne Pedersen, Janet Selby, Kara Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Benham, Gila Stert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizo, Gio and Carol Argentati, Jodie Friesner, Ruth Ann Thunderberg, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, The equally mysterious Tracy Z, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Rebecca Hughes, Val Linneman, rhymes with cinnamon, Nick Harperson, Martha Bergner, Susan Amon, Molly Levine, the inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, the Pandivian, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Kelly Machia, Deanne Norton, Bonnie Lynch, Plant Happy Oregon, Sabina Kurtzels, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Copel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Shannon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzuma, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Orlikowski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Morani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Tanya Lewis, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Valerie Peltier, Peter W. Evans, Colleen Harrison, Justine Divitt, Joshua Summermeyer, Dennis Bird, Darmy Kelly, Laurie Fanny, Linnea Lundquist, Valerie Hummel, Emily Iaconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan McCorney, Stephen Lehman, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Bill Brielf, Gunter Schmidt, Marjorie Lewis, Kelly Molden, Tricia Adams, Ian Kramer, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunn Marie Hagan, Tracy Gullich, Laura Heaton, Meg for Mama Says, Rochelle Kennedy, Diana Goldman, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, Holly Butler, Diana, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Param Ganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Olga Sidorowska, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught, of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Nayak, Erica Piedra, and Danielle Roberts for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for today. As always, be well, my friends.